Hello, I'm Sam McVeigh, and this is the director's commentary for The Babysitter. The Babysitter is a short film written by Luke Hellier and sees Erica, the main character, babysitting for her neighbours when things take a sinister turn. When adapting the script, it became very clear that one of the huge influences was slasher films, mainly of the 80s, and the most prominent one within this was Scream. While discussing ideas with my DOP and various other members of the crew, it became clear that there were certain scenes that did resemble many scenes from Scream, especially the one in the most recent trailer. So this became something of a hurdle that I had to overcome, as I didn't want the film to be a straight-up rip-off, rather a homage to not only Scream, but that entire genre of films. With this idea in mind, I came up with a few different ideas that could be quite playful within the film, so that the film stands on its own 2 feet, but also there's sort of Easter eggs or hidden references for the audience that does have an appreciation for that genre. These references begin almost at the beginning of the film, as Erica at the beginning of the film is watching 1978's Halloween. This in itself is a sort of double reference, as Halloween is a slasher film in itself, but also Halloween is the film watched at the beginning of the original Scream movie too. So this became a playful little reference to not only Scream, but again, the slasher movie genre as a whole. And the references to this genre do continue, as in the script, the killer was just called Man. So in order to give him a bit more of a character himself, I decided to call him Jason, again as a reference to the slasher film Friday the 13th with Jason Voorhees. In terms of indirect references, I instructed both actors, Sophia Sade and Luigi Chalice, to play their characters in a very unique way. For Sophia, I instructed her to play Erica as an almost stereotypical, slightly wooden final girl, again in reference to this genre. Luigi, on the other hand, I instructed to be quite bombastic with his character. As it was only spoken and not actually physical, I instructed him to be quite unique with his voice. We wanted to avoid the obvious reference of Scream, and although that character does have a very unique voice, we wanted to try and go completely in the opposite direction. And so the voice we found for Luigi was quite sinister, but extremely memorable within this film. So very clearly, this film was heavily influenced by these genres, and almost serves as a homage to them. However, as I previously mentioned, I did want this film to stand on its own 2 feet as its own film regardless, and that's why I added my own little spin to it. The first way I did this was to play around with the idea of sound effects versus music. To begin with, the film featured no music whatsoever, and purely relied on things like heartbeats, breathing, footsteps, and various other creepy and tension-filled noises. When viewing the film for the first time, this proved to be more awkward than it did scary. So I went back into the editing room and instead decided to play around with some music. The music I found by Kevin MacLeod and Sushant Sonawale served the purpose excellently and completely elevated the film to a point that I was very happy with, and I found that it was a lot more tense and a lot more scary as a result. However, some of the sound effects I did use I thought served a very good purpose, and so during the film there are still references to these. So for instance, during the scene where Erica first gets the text from Jason, I still included the heartbeat there, as I felt it elevated the tension in an otherwise quite slow scene. On the visual side, there were two ways in which I wanted the film to appear very unique and distinct within the horror genre. First of which was the colour palette. Typically in this genre, the colour palette will be quite cool, with lots of darks and blues being used. While there were certain scenes within the film, such as when Erica enters Jackson's bedroom, where we did use this particular colour palette, one thing we wanted to get right was being distinct, again to kind of differentiate ourselves from Scream as well as others, was by making the film a very warm and orangey colour. The only slasher film close to this colour palette would be 1974's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so this became a very good visual influence for what we wanted to do on the film. The second way we wanted to differentiate ourselves, while also paying homage, was with our POV shots. There are a handful of POV shots within the film, such as, again, when Erica enters Jackson's bedroom, and when she re-enters the living room afterwards, where the camera is moving and as if someone is watching Erica. This was a good way of playing with tension within the film, as the entire film you're not sure if Erica's being watched or if someone's in the room with her. The main influence for these shots came from Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead, in which a lot of handheld POV shots were used. We wanted to make our own spin on this by keeping them fairly static and only moving from side to side or up and down, rather than moving around fully as if controlled by a human being. Overall, I think myself and the excellent team I had did a fantastic job of making The Babysitter stand on its own two legs while also serving as a homage to one of my favourite horror genres. And I fully hope that you enjoyed watching as much as we enjoyed making it.